not concerned about the amount of time I have to invest into the work. Asher Yoker Huli Bikesef Rab time is more valuable to me than a lot of money. I'm not concerned about my health. I've been up ready for many nights without sleeping. He says, I committed the following. Yaver alai ma. Whatever happens to me. Al mishmarti emoida. At my post, on my watch, I will stand. Those words that the Friedrich Rebbe writes, Al mishmarti emoida, actually come from the Navi Habakkuk. And there are numerous interpretations as to what that means. So the David explained that someone who has a job to stand ala mishmar, protects a shomer who doesn't depart, he doesn't leave his job, his responsibilities under any circumstance. He's ready, he stands ready to fulfill and to do and to involve himself whatever is necessary. The Tzidkian says, the Shmarti and the Shmeres is Davar Halmudal al Harbe B'nidol. That this refers to a job that needs to get done by many, many people. And as I reflect on the words of the Friedrich Rebbe and Rabbi Itkin, I'll apologize in advance, Itkin was named after the Friedrich Rebbe. To me, one of the best ways to sum up Rabbi Itkin, that he was al mishmarti amoida. That means he was ready to do whatever was necessary at any time, at any place. He was ready to respond to a situation, do and contribute the way that only he knew how to do so. I have so many stories to tell because of other speakers after me. But I could just tell you, in addition to working with him in yeshiva and hearing from him his care and his concern, countless conversations about individual bachim and individual situations. Rabbi Itkin had a minhag that from time to time he would call me. It was usually pretty late in the evening. There's a shalom bayis issue. There's an individual kid who's dealing with a problem. Let's go and take care of it. I remember when we won the Supreme Court case, and it was, we were able to put up the menorah. Let's go put up the menorah. A little while later, someone defaced it. Let's go. We have to go spray paint and spray it out. My recollections of Rabbi Itkin was that he was not just concerned about yeshiva and the Lubavitch Center, the community, and individuals. He was al mishmarti amoida. He was waiting anxiously. What does the Eibishter want me to do at this given moment to fulfill the shlichut? And he did it as a second interpretation of the Tzidkian. Not as an individual, never about him. It was about the group. Let's go, come with me together. He was equal, didn't have to be him, he didn't want the attention, he didn't want the honor. There's people who have that approach. What am I supposed to do at this given moment? How am I supposed to respond? They don't think about it. Am I going to get the honor, etc., etc. They think about the job that has to get done. I just want to conclude with the interpretation on one of the same words on the Shmarti Amoida in the Markel, one of the Parshas, the Navi. He says, Amar HaNavi, Ribono Shel Olam, Eini Zaz Mikan. Ribono Shel Olam, I'm not going to leave here. Ad Shetedieni Kate Golzeh, till you inform me the end of Golzeh. I am definitely sure that Rabbi Itkin is tummeling the Maila. I'm sure somewhere he found a lot of great people. I'm sure he ran into my mother, who they hosted at their Shabbos table so many years, and said, let's go, we got to demand the Moshiach that he come already. And there too, al-Mishmarti Amoida, he's standing strong and firm and demanding the Eibusher should listen to his plea, and once and for all, bring the Geula at a time we'll be reunited with him and all our loved ones. As you may notice, tonight there are representatives from the Lubavitch Center, from Yeshiva, from on Yeshiva, and then there's going to be a Talmud of Rabbi Itkin. Now we're going to ask a dear friend of Rabbi Itkin and community, Mr. Zev Rudolph, came back special to participate in tonight's Shloshim, to share a couple words representing the friends.
bear with me. The first time I'm thinking back. In all my years I've been around, the first time I've ever spoken at Shloshim. But when Mrs. Itkin called, she didn't even ask me to say yes or no. It was just like we're speaking Tuesday night, we'll be in Pittsburgh and we'll speak. And obviously my relationship with the Itkin, Mrs. Itkin and the family, the girls, the sons, just, to say they're a special family is an understatement. An old friend of mine once told me many years ago that most of your events, most of the things that you do on a day in and day out basis in life, doesn't change, doesn't raise the needle. It pretty much keeps your life the same. But there's only a few events in one's life that does really change everything. And I think we can all look back on those events and think, in our personal lives, that certain things have had a major change. And about 30 years ago in this room, when through Shachar Pratis, I ended up sitting, Rabbi Itkin pulled a seat up to the end of this table because I was looking for a seat, and he had me sit next to him, and I never moved from that seat. And that was a life-changing event for me. We developed a relationship over the last 30 years that really was a bond beyond comprehension. We spent many Shabbosim together, many Yom Tovim together. We spent times in many Farbrengen in Crown Heights and in South Africa where we came for our kids' Passover, and in many places in between. Literally thousands of hours together. And he was the quintessential mensch, and he exuded Ahavas Israel like nobody I ever saw. He was a giant. And it's interesting that in his years he got so involved in the field of kashrus. And as we know, the mantra of Chabad, that was one of my first bar tours at Losa, Morty's bar mitzvah, with the lamplighter. And not only was Rabbi Itkin the lamplighter, but how many lamplighters did we all try to carry a torch in their car on a day in and day out basis. And this truly represented who Rabbi Itkin was, if those of you who know, because he always had a torch. And I was the recipient of some of these endeavors many times, whether it was my mother's grill, or whether it was an event at the Federation, or whether it was different events that were going on in the community. He so quietly and selflessly took care of each and every one of our needs, not just ours in this community, but in the entire community, so that we could eat at a certain event. There were countless times I would call him, literally as I was pulling in, and say, Rabbi Itkin, what can I eat, what can't I eat? And he was so patient and so understanding. He should have said, Zev, you're such a pain. But he never did. And he was just so sweet. It's something that I think is really, we need to carry on this kindness and this act of the lamplighter to, in our daily lives and carry it on forward. As I was thinking about what to say today, I got a call from Rabbi Hershel Pfeffer, who happened to have been in New York. He's from and many of you know him. And he said, what are you doing in Pittsburgh? I said, I came for the Shloshim of Rabbi Itkin. I said, you had a relationship? He said, yeah, I was very close with Rabbi Itkin. He said, you know what my story is with Rabbi Itkin? I said, no, I really have no idea. He said, in the 80s, a student by the name of Yaakov was in yeshiva here in Pittsburgh for a short time. And that following summer, he ended up in Detroit, where Rabbi Shem Tov was a counselor. Rabbi Shem Tov was a rabbi. And he said, Rabbi Shem Tov said, Rabbi Itkin used to call me several times a week to see how Yaakov was doing. This one, Pat Bacher, who happened to go to Detroit to go to camp. He said, and then the following year, Or Hanan in Los Angeles, this Bacher ended up there, and Rabbi Shem Tov ended up there as a shliach. And he said, we were in touch on a weekly basis the entire year about this Bacher Yaakov, to make sure he was comfortable, make sure everybody was treating him well, to make sure he was happy in the yeshiva. And I'm thinking, and Rabbi Rosenblum and the other rabbis mentioned it, I can be sure he is organizing his favorite word, a grandiose Farbrengen, up on high, as we're all sitting here, and storming the heavens to bring Mashiach. And I just want to close with one personal regret, which I'm going to resolve tonight. When I called a few weeks ago during when he was in Canterbury, I don't want to say the word, when he was in Canterbury, and I called Rabbi Munshine. And his wife took the phone and she said, I'm not sure if my father can hear, but if you want to say a few words, I'll put the phone up to his ear. And Rabbi Munshine put the phone to his ear. I said, Rabbi, every time we talked, we spoke at least every week for the last 30 years, and even more so in the last 10 years. And every time he would conclude the conversation, he used to always conclude by saying, Zev, I love you. And it was so heartwarming to hear a guy who grew up next door to 770. I grew up in Pittsburgh, more on a golf course than next door to 770. And we were so connected. And I responded when the phone was put there, I said, Rabbi Itkin, I love you too. But after I hung up, I regretted the fact that what I should have said was, Rabbi Itkin, thank you for affecting my life, changing my life, and having such an effect on our entire Pittsburgh community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rudolph. Rabbi Altein mentioned how in every single Farbrengen, the year after the Rebbe passed away, the Rebbe mentioned what's interesting is, how many times did the Rebbe actually mention the Rebbe per se? Something about her, something to learn from her? You can count on one hand, less than 5 times throughout the entire year, that the Rebbe actually mentioned the Rebbe. But the Rebbe constantly mentioned, every single Farbrengen started off and continued with the theme of V'chai Yitein Aliba, something we could learn. Our father, Baruch Hashem, and many, many friends learned. During his years in yeshiva, he would always say, he would repeat what he heard from Mrs. Posner, Allah Shalom, when she was asked, who's your favorite grandchild? She would say, the one sitting next to me. He would say, who's my favorite Talmud? He would always say, the one sitting next to me, the one next to me now. There's countless Talmidim, thousands of Talmidim have gone through being with him over the years. Many of them have reached out, felt how my father spent many, many hours special giving them attention. I just want to point out several things that were just important to him. First of all, this idea of learning. He told me once when he was a bacher, he spent his time actually learning, not dilly-dallying around. He told me what happens after you're married is one thing. When you have time, sit and learn. I actually sat and learned. During his free time, he would be sitting and learning at every opportunity. There were several people in our community who told me that every time you go to the oil, they ask a bracha for the community. Rabbi Itkin said, when we go to the oil, don't ask only about yourself, about your personal needs. Ask for the kehillah, ask for the community. Ask for everyone. And he said every time they go to the oil, they write, they ask a bracha for the community, for everyone else. He always would go over to everyone in shul. A new person, Shalom Aleichem, welcome to Pittsburgh, where are you from? Welcome every single person in shul. He wasn't usually the person who would look from far, who is that, who is that? He would actually go over to every person, welcome them. All of his many things he would do without, he would never ask for remuneration to get paid for. He kashered over the years, dozens, maybe hundreds of houses in Pittsburgh. Rabbi Altein could say, this is about us. How many people, he one time asked, how many people here did Rabbi Itkin kasher the kitchen? And almost everybody raised their hand there. He would never take money for kashering the kitchen, especially someone who wanted to become kosher. For Farbrengen, he would fundraise. For being a gabbai, he would do it on Manash Lilakal Pras. He says, Hashem will pay you back with nachas for the children, with gezunt, with simcha. We'll all be Manash Lilakal Pras. His name is Yosef Yitzchak. When Avram named his son Yitzchak, he said, Kol Hashem meya yitzachak li. Whoever hears will be b'simcha, will be happy. Yosef's idea of adding on, Yosef yitain v'yachzer v'yitain. My father's theme was always adding simcha, bringing simcha to everybody he saw, everybody he met, greeting everybody with a smile. He would always go out of his way just to make people feel good. I remember one time when I was a little kid. I must have been about 10 years old. I was late to school. And I lived next door to the school. Right? I lived over here, and outside of our window, you could see in the gym, you could see the school. My father asks me, "Do you want to ride to school?" I said, "Yes, for sure." So we walked about 2 blocks down to the car. We got into the car, he drove me around to the front of the building. You realize that somebody needed some special time, some special attention, and they made sure to give me give a ride to school. So if you say that Yitzchak Aliba is to look out, how can you make another Yid Simcha? How can you go do something without asking anyone else? Ask someone's opinion, and actually the emes want to hear what they have to say with a bittul. One last thing I would like to say, to bring attention to the back left corner of the room. When my father was about 15 or 16 years old, so the age of maybe Sherbeiz, Shivatana, and he was a bacher in Yeshiva with his friends. He had 16 boys in his class. 14 of them were named, 12 of them were, 11 of them were Yosef Yitzchak, and other 3 were Yitzchak or Yosef, a mix of the two. And the Rebbe at that point was not being Magia, was not editing Mamor. Very rarely, not common. There's a chassid named Ben Shem Tov, who came to the class of young boys, 15, 16 years old, and he told them, he riled them up. He says, "You know why the Rebbe is not editing being Magia Mamorim and Sichos? It's your fault. Because you're not kachim, you're not involved enough in the Rebbe's Sichos and Mamorim. You have to be much more involved in the Rebbe's Sichos and Mamorim." So from then on, they started, this group of boys, this class, would review, would chazer, the chazara, every minor, every sikh of the Rebbe, they would write it down. And Rabbi Shem Tov, he went over to them, and he told them, "I want you to give me your hanachas, your writings that you wrote down, your review of the Rebbe's Mamarim." And they didn't know what he wanted to do. They thought he wanted to read it. They gave it over to him. Little did they know that he gave it to the Rebbe to be Magia, to edit and to look over it. And there's one minor, we look at Aleph, called the minor of Kisisa, which my father is actually based on my father's Hanacha. My father was about 15 or 16 years old at that point, and they sent in that Hanacha, generally mainly as Hanacha, was worked on a little bit. Sent it into the Rebbe was Magia it, the Rebbe edited it, and it's printed in Sefer Amar Melukot Aleph. And there were several other ones he was involved in, but that one is mainly based on his Hanacha. And in the corner, we're making a chalukah, just like we divided Mishnayos for the Shloshim. So for the year, we are dividing all the Mamorim Melukot, the Mamorim which the Rebbe edited and were printed in the 6 Svarim, the Sefer Mamorim Melukot, and there's about 180 Mamorim, so that's Mr. Hashem going to be divided to learn until his Yahrzeit, first Yahrzeit coming up on his Zayin Tevis. And the main thing, of course, we would always ask, and for everybody else, as he said by Rabbi Ephraim Rosenblum's Shloshim, that Rabbi Rosenblum, he wouldn't want speeches. He would want Simcha Farbrengen. So my father definitely would only want Simcha, and everyone should be with Simcha, and only good news from now on. Go ahead.
My class was the first class to greet Rabbi Itkin when he started his teaching career in Pittsburgh. And it was clear from the beginning, the very beginning, that he absolutely cared and loved us, and he was just totally devoted to us. He taught us how to be bacher. He taught us sort of just how to be that way, and how to talk that way, and how to think that way, and just how to immerse yourself in that. I mean, obviously, teenagers, a lot of teenage angst and things like that, and he had no patience for it. He would just he'd hear what you're saying, and then he'd say, just be besimcha and be done with it, It was just clear how much he cared. One of the things that Rabbi Itkin was really not good at was being angry with us. He tried, and he would show that he was angry. And I remember one time, I don't remember who it was, what it was, but he was trying to be angry, and in the middle he just couldn't, and he just smiled. He loved us too much. The Rebbe told us, and we have to really think about it and really take to heart what that person stood for. And with Rabbi Itkin, I think it was being genuine, authentic, truly caring and loving another person without any ulterior motives. I think that was one of his strongest points. Obviously, his love of learning Nigla, learning Chassidus, I believe that he cared about them equally. He also, his simcha, just, getting into a rut or whatever, just be the simcha, and you'll pull yourself out of it, and don't sweat the small stuff. And that really was, to me, just such a important lesson for my life, and something which I try to emulate every day. One other thing that really made an impression on us was Chavis for Yud Aleph Nissen. I believe he did this as a bacher as well, and he suggested that we learn the amount of sichos that correspond to the Rebbe's age as a gift to the Rebbe and as a chana for Yud Aleph Nissen, preparation for Yud Aleph Nissen. And so we learned 80 some sichos. I don't remember exactly how many, but it made a big impact, and it gave me a passion for learning sichos, and it's something which I take with me even to this very day. So that was something that was very special. Just a few years ago, I spent some time, a good few months in Pittsburgh, and he made sure that we started a chavrusa together, and we learned Masechta Megillah, and I'm pretty sure we finished the Masechta. We got pretty close. But he knew I was there for various reasons, and he wanted to make sure that I wasn't just there for those reasons, but I was there in order to learn. And we learned together, and it really, almost every day, and it really, really made, it changed my experience for those months that I was there. It was very, very, very special. And again, it just demonstrated how much he cared, how much he loved us, and we loved him back. We really, really did. And I'm going to really, I'm going to miss him terribly.
My name is Markel, but Rabbi Itkin never called me Markel. He tried once when I was an adult, but we both just looked at each other and laughed. He continued to call me Mordechai after that. He would often remind me how we both arrived in Pittsburgh on the same day of Elul in 1981. I was 14. Over the course of my first year at yeshiva, Rabbi Itkin, along with Rabbi Nunes, taught me what an important holy thing a Hasidic Farbrengen can be. This culminated in a very impactful Purim night for me at the Itkin's old house on Douglas Street. Rabbi Itkin held me to the many achatas which he told me that I had made that night, many of which have helped shape the course of me and my family's lives to this very day. Rabbi Itkin will forever remain my example of a loving chassid of the Rebbe.
My name is Yirmiyahu Cohen of Toronto, and I lived in yeshiva in Pittsburgh from the years 1986 till 1988. At that time, my father went into the Rebbe, and he gave the Rebbe a few options where to send me. One of the options was Pittsburgh, and I remember that one of the options the Rebbe completely crossed out. And so I went to Pittsburgh. Baruch Hashem. Rabbi Itkin was my teacher. The third year that I was there, I stayed at my Rabbi and Mrs. Itkin's house. I called in to one of Rabbi Itkin's sons during the Shiva, and I told him that it is your father's favorite Talmud calling, to which he replied, but my father had so many favorite Talmidim, but this was Rabbi Itkin. He made you feel that you were his most favorite and special Talmud. I remember once standing in 770 on Rosh Chodesh Kislev. This was about Tafshin Nun, I believe. And we were finishing davening Meir with the Rebbe, and the Rebbe makes his way from his place to go back, and we're singing the Rosh Chodesh Kislev Nigin. And as he gets, we were standing by the bima, Rabbi Itkin and I, he looks towards us, to our direction, and he makes with his hand to sing even stronger. And I remember Rabbi Itkin's face, he was ecstatic, he was elated. And for over an hour, we stood together, my hand over his shoulder, singing the Rosh Chodesh Kislev Nigin again and again and again. The love for the Rebbe that you saw was just amazing.
My name is Raleigh Resnick. I'm a shliach in Northern California, and I studied in Yeshiva Safik Nimim in yeshiva schools in Tafshin and Vav and Zion 1995 through 1997. I will never forget it. Waking up in the morning in yeshiva was not my strong suit, and so, to encourage me, Rabbi Itkin promised me that he would personally study with me one-on-one early in the morning. I think it was 6 or 6:30 before yeshiva started. And it worked. The excitement of that personal attention from Rabbi Itkin got me up in the morning. Those Maimarim and Darfim Tvesecha remain etched in my mind, and I can still hear him teaching them to me some 25 years later. Rabbi Itkin would always tell us the story of a man who was going to buy his son his very first siddur. And he walks into the store and he asks for a siddur that has all the commentaries and the Farshim around the words of God. And the owner says, "Why do you need that book? He's a 5-year-old child." And the father responds and says, "I know my son. He likes to fiddle and fidget with the edges of the pages. Although afraid they'll tear. Even if the sides tear, if he has this svar, this sefer, this siddur with all the commentaries, the words of the davening will remain intact." And Rabbi Itkin, in his inimitable, jovial, and energetic, enthusiastic tone, would tell us that our years in yeshiva, those are the time to invest in all the padding. He would shower us with stories, Farbrengen, nigunim, and in so doing, even if over time things fray, our neshamas, our davening will remain intact. Thank you, Rabbi Itkin. Thank you for all the investment and the years you put into myself and into so many of your talmidim. I hope that I can continue to bring to fruition the dividends of that investment for many, many long years. Tehei Zichrei Baruch.
Hi, my name is Parshas. I'm a nephew, and I was lucky enough to be a talmid of Rabbi Itkin's for 3 years, starting in 2018 to 2019. And just 2 short stories I would like to share. It's on Fridays, whenever we'd have to daven in the other building, Rabbi Itkin would always offer me a ride and tell me to bring some bachrim. We would fit 5-6 bachrim in his 5-seater. And we would drive, and this 4-minute drive was more than just a car ride. It was like our weekly Farbrengen. We would sing the gunim, he would chaz over a vart, he would ask us what we're learning, how was our week. Something interesting about this, we only had a 5-seater of Itkin to show how much he cared for the bachrim. It was in the snow. He would pull over his car whenever he saw a bachar walking. He'd always offer them a ride, even though our car was completely full. Another story I would like to share is whenever Rabbi Itkin have the bachrim over for a Friday night meal, he would always tell the bachrim how the bachrim are Kaddish Keddashim, and the bachrim need to make their own Kiddush on Friday nights, and how it's too much for him to have on his mind. And Baruch Hashem, to this day, I'm still making Kiddush. I'll continue to.
So I'm here representing all of the Talmidim Rabbi Itkin was able to influence all through the years. And I feel very privileged because Rabbi Itkin actually picked me out of the Talmud from when I was just a kid. And it again shows that Rabbi Itkin was always on the lookout for Talmidim. The year that Rabbi Itkin moved to Pittsburgh, so my sister got married, and I was 7 years old. And I was, the wedding was at the William Penn Hotel, and Rabbi Itkin called me over in the middle of the wedding. And he said to me, I want to tell you that my sister got married, my older sister got married when I was about your age. And I don't remember so much from the wedding. So I want you to stay here right now and make memories of the wedding, as it is right now. And of course, the only thing I remember about my sister's wedding is Rabbi Itkin telling me to pick memories. But that was Rabbi Itkin. He was always teaching, giving you that sense of how you would be able to live your life in a deeper, more beautiful way. And Baruch Hashem, I was able to have him as my teacher in high school for 3 years. And my father also arranged, and it's funny because my brother Penny, it must be something with the Hermit boys in the Sefton Megillah. My father arranged one summer we learned Sefton Megillah. And everybody's talking about how much Rabbi Itkin cared, but I want to just stress that Rabbi Itkin cared for you as the way that you showed up. And I would stay up late during the summers, and I would come to him, it was like 10 o'clock in the morning, and I'd go down to the newly renovated basement at the Itkin's home. And that's where we used to learn. Baruch Hashem, there were beds there. So Rabbi would see that I was, we're trying to learn Masechta, and I was nodding off. So he'd say, listen, take a nap. I'll be back in a half hour. So I slept well, I learned well. And I think that's what Rabbi Itkin gave you, is that, what's a great teacher? A great teacher is that it's not just that you remember what they taught you, but you remember exactly how they made you feel. Every time when you think about them, you remember how they made you feel. And as my brother Penny was saying, Rabbi Itkin was a seer, especially for, we grew up in Pittsburgh, but we know it was not just a seer of what a chassid was supposed to be. I think even more powerful was that he believed that we could be chassidim. Which for kids growing up, about Shuvah house, and what do we know, Rabbi Itkin believed in us. That we could become chassidim even though we didn't grow up after 770. We could take a look at the way he lived his life. We could model ourselves after that, and we'd be okay. And I think that there's thousands and thousands of Talmidim that are sitting today because Rabbi Itkin gave them a pathway. Here's what it looks like to be a chassid. You see, you can do it too, and I believe in you. And I think everybody, therefore, has these Rabbi Itkin moments that sort of stick in your mind. I have a 7-year-old moment, but I have so many other moments, whether it's going to New York, when we had this 15-passenger van, we also used to pack in more than 15 people. These trips to New York, the moments that you had with him, where you really, really felt you were the only one that he was talking to at that moment. You didn't feel like he was talking to a class full of Talmidim, he was talking specifically to you. And you knew it, because after class, he had something to say to you. He noticed. He noticed you were awake that day, you weren't awake that day. He was always. He was always making sure that you knew that he cared. And because he truly did. And that type of authenticity, that type of life is one that Mirza Hashem we should all aspire to. And it's not the same being in Pittsburgh and not seeing Rabbi Itkin walk through the door with that smile. So we all have to make sure that we put on that smile for each other, the one that Rabbi Itkin would have greeted us with.
I know I'm breaking a little bit of protocol. Usually you do not have a woman speaking at these events, but my husband's life was surrounded with a sphere of Markel very much. And I really felt this shlation was going to be sort of representing different aspects of his life, and I think the feminine aspect of his life does have to be represented, and so I'm representing it. As growing up as Farbrengen, growing up as Hasidim, we always knew the value in a mechitza. There's no question when there's a shalom zachar, not shalom zachar, bris, a bar mitzvah, and a wedding, you have a full-on mechitza. And I grew up very much knowing that. And we were very careful with the mechitza in our lives. I remember till today, in the room next door was the Munshines Shevat breakfast Friday night. The Munshines are related to us. They're our third cousins, but I didn't know. Well, they got related to us. And I know how valuable the mechitza is. So I had a view for the men, a view for the woman, and a huge, massive space. After all, it was only family Friday night, nobody else, and we're all related. And the scene, I will never forget the scene of my father and my father-in-law standing outside those doors and not coming in till the mechitza was up. And at that moment, I made a chalata. Whenever I make an event in my life, I will make an event that my father and my father-in-law are comfortable with. Thus, having mechitza. I will refer to, I'll use the word Eibishter for Hashem. Eibishter means the one above. That's the word I'm most comfortable using. And I will be referring to some specific concepts, but I will not be explaining them. So you'll try to get around that. When my husband and I started this journey that Hashem chose for us, we made 3 haflatas. First, we will try to do it with grace. We will do it with great ahavas Hashem, and we will try to do it as stress-free as possible. Many, many people in the community ask, and people all over ask this question, where did all our Tehillim go? An enormous, enormous amount of Tehillim was said. All this were made, classes, the world was stormed, my children were amazing, storming the world. Where did all of that go? And I'm going to tell you that our family saw where it went. First of all, it gave my husband, literally, it brought him life. It literally brought him life. And the next part, which I will be talking to be the theme of my speech, will be all the silver lining in this difficult journey. That it was mamtik or dinim. Everybody's tehillim sweetened the difficult din that we were going through. Ashreinu matay chalkeinu, u'manayim garaleinu, u'mayafa yerushaseinu. My husband and I, it wasn't the moment that we were not grateful that we had this force to be raised as Gavak. Because Chassidus looks at the Eibishter in a very different light. You look literally and learn about Gerechtigkeit and God. So we learn Avinu Malkeinu, our Father, our King. Chassidus emphasizes very strongly the concept of Avinu, our Father. Hashem loves us as our Father. He only wants what's good for us. And Malkeinu, He's our King. When a king is crowned, all he wants to do is give wonderful things to his subjects. He loves his subjects. Sometimes he has to do things that he's not so comfortable with, but it's always coming out of the Avos of Hashem, the love of Hashem. So my husband and I, for the entire journey, literally we felt Hashem holding us in our hands. It wasn't the moment we felt we were not guided from by Hashem. My husband would lay in bed night after night, and he would say, look how lucky I am. Look at all the brachos that Hashem showered me in my life. As many of you know, my husband had a chush for friendships, connecting to people. That was one of his greatest strengths. He has many friends in the heart. He had many friends in his growing up years who were very pivotal in forming who he was. I'm not going to enumerate these friends by name, because I will definitely miss one of them, but there is a known group, they're called the Kvutza of Miami. This is a group of boys who were sent on shlichus for 3 years to Miami. and that literally formed their lives. They were brothers of the heart, literally and physically, and have been in touch and been very, very close. Before this group left, the Rebbe told them they are a group of chosen Bachrim, and the Rebbe gave each of them a Tanya. When the Kvutza, spearheaded by my husband's very, very close friend, found out that my husband wasn't well, they made an initiative, and the first thing they did was they printed a Tanya in honor of my husband for Refuah Shlema. This Tanya was very, very precious to my husband, and he kept it on his desk, and he appreciated everything that it meant, and especially to this Kvutza, because my husband never left the house without walking around the Tanya the Rebbe gave him when they went on Yechidus before they went to Miami. So to have a continuation when he was going through a challenging time in his life really, really meant a lot to my husband. My husband had many, many good friends. A very close friend was Shalom Charitana, I want to mention because he's very, very close. Shalom's brother, Shmerel Charitana, we would leave every single third day a beautiful, beautiful voice note to my husband. Chassidish Amaisis, interesting stuff. It was I think a whole book can be written just on the voice notes that he left my husband. My husband would listen to them over and over and over again. My husband had a very close friend, Mayor Eichler, who when my husband was in Miami, he wrote many letters to Mayor Eichler that really gave the synopsis of what it means to be a chassid. Mayor Eichler, in his wisdom, held on to those letters, and he shared them with our family, and some excerpts of it are written up in the book that my children put together. My husband and I was very close friends. I have Yosef Harari, Shimon Brook, Yosef Kesselman. These are all his old childhood buddies. My husband had many, 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 many close friends in Pittsburgh. He loved the community. By the way, I do want to reiterate this whole concept of my husband and I never went to the Rebbe or wrote a poem without writing to the community. We did it each individually, not even though the other one was doing it. But the community is primary. If we knew somebody in the community is going through a difficult thing, we would ask a special bracha for those people in the community. I would like to mention our good friends, Dr. and Mrs. Hubener. My husband's very close friend, David Friedman. I have to give David Friedman a lot of credit. He literally tried to come and visit my husband every single day. He always knocked on the door and said, please see Rabbi Itkin. And the last year it was really, usually my husband was really not up to visitors. I also want to thank Salman Goldwasser very much. Salman, every time a new sefer came out or something interesting, he immediately went and he bought it for my husband, so my husband should have something interesting to read. Those who know me know I'm not the type to boast about my children. The biggest compliment that I took from all my mothering, if you try the best you can, is one of my kids told me, Ma, you see us for who we are. You see us for our good points and points we need to grow in yet. But I do want to say that when they were faced with a very, very big test and they were squeezed, out came Shemin Zayis pure olive oil. I was very blessed and fortunate that my children and my sons-in-laws who are literally sons to us, they're not sons-in-laws, my wonderful daughter-in-laws were daughters to us, took turns every 3 days at the beginning of the journey. They took turns. They took off from school in order that I should be able to go to school. And everybody came all the time and didn't leave us alone. And that there was just not enough words to say a thank you to them. There's many, many great silver linings that we had on this journey. And one of them was the fact that all we did was have to stay in Pittsburgh. We have a very wonderful facility called UPMC. They're very competitive in the illness that my husband has. They're very, very competitive. They're one of the top in the world, and they have the latest treatments. You don't have to travel anywhere. I told my husband, I used to say, imagine if we lived in New York, you have to schlep to Manhattan, and then park in Manhattan, to come back to Manhattan. Everything was very, very close, and the latest things were right here. The Markel of Lubavitch spoke, it says, how can a human doctor heal? He's only a human being. So, the Torah says they're given the power to heal. And through what means are they given the power to heal? Through a malach. Every single doctor is assigned a malach. So the Maggid of Mizrash said, the greater the doctor, the greater the malach. And we got this, my father-in-law was very, very careful, but only go to the doctors and everything, because that's where the great malach is. Hashem blessed us with an amazing doctor, Dr. Rabbi Thomas, who was a Refa Yedid in this. He ended up being a Refa Yedid. And he said, Rabbi, while you're fighting, I will fight with you. And we had many people overlooking my husband's case, the RCCS, the head doctor from MIT in experimental medicine. We had many people overlooking my husband's case. And they were in a small, they could not get over the ingenuity of Dr. Thomas and what he's done. And everybody in the hospital knew our family, they knew our faith-based family, and they all kept on saying, they give you this prediction, but they learned over the years, but with the rabbi, that prediction doesn't necessarily apply. And all that is definitely due to the Tehillim, that he actually got through many crises through the Tehillim. So much so, when they came over to us at the end, and we were planning to, Rosh Hashanah to go home, that was our plan. And they called me in Motzei Shabbos and said, Mrs. Itkin, sorry, your husband cannot go home. He has to go in the hospice. And I was like, what? I said, oh, hear that he needs you, and you cannot do it at home. It's only one unit, one facility in the whole town that has it, and we'll try to get you a bed there. So you're going to leave Monday afternoon into the hospice. Monday morning, Dr. Rabbi Thomas came to speak to my husband, and he said, Rabbi, he starts, we were all talking about you downstairs, referring to the doctor's lounge downstairs, and he said, we concluded, and this literally said, we concluded it was all from above. Even our medical intervention didn't do anything, it was all him. So as my kid said, that the fact that a non-Jewish doctor can recognize so clearly and openly the hand of Hashem, there's nothing greater than that. When they told our family that we have to go to hospitals, it was really not an easy thing, but that was the Eibishter's final wonderful gift to our family. We had 8 days of being, first of all, I learned a lot going in there. The people who work there are nurses for many years, and what they do is they really give back the dignity to a person. People at the end of their life, they're at home, the hospital. There's a very huge loss of dignity. There, they give back their dignity. They treat you like a human being. And anytime we thank them, they would say, it's such an honor, it's our honor. I learned so much about how to treat a person. It was on the level of something else. But because it's set up like the home, there was a large living room, a large dining room, a large kitchen, and pretty much, we took it over. And they allowed us, they turned the hospice room to sleep there, or they closed their eyes and let us stay there. And literally, if you want to call it a 24 hours, 8 days Farbrengen, that's when the suit. It was during Hanukkah, and every time somebody davened Hallel, they came in and sang Hallel with my husband. Every time they did Rambam, he did Rambam. They davened day and night. It was Farbrengen and learning. And anything, any Gemara, anything anybody had to learn over and over, group after group was coming in. And I had to give a special thank you to my grandchildren who stayed up through the night saying, to allow us to have our rest. And they stayed up through the night after night. So my husband was 24 hours of tefillah. And it was beautiful access. We had unfiltered access. Children had to their father, and it was a very special moment. And I told my kids, recognize the great gift that the Eibishter is giving us. He's giving us the gift of closure. Not many people get the time and the space in a beautiful, serene setting. And as one of my kids came up with a tagline, they said, hospice takes care of the roof, and so the neshama can go in its own timeline. And another kid of mine said, Ma, I felt I was connecting the whole time to the Yechida of Tati's neshama. It says, Itkin is the theme. Many decisions had to be made along this trip. I made some interesting decisions. I'll share one of them with Some of my kids were questioning me, some of my in-law children were questioning me. But I decided sometimes you just have to teach by example. I grew up with many things we discussed in an open way. We grew up with the concept of wills in my family. My mother's father, my Zayda was sent to exile to Kazakhstan, and he knew the end was coming near, and he sent a letter to his wife, who was in Russia, and in it was his last will and testament. It's a very, very beautiful letter, how a chassid finishes a life, how he wraps it up, how he begs his children to follow the way of Torah, and be meticulous with mitzvahs. So we grew up knowing that letter. My father's father, my Zayda Naftali, was very, very known for his wills. Every time he learned something new in halacha, he came across a letter, he came across something else that had to do with the proper way of a person leaving this world, he updated his will. I mean, we already knew 4 updates to his will, and us grandchildren and children knew many parts of the will that applied to us. So we did have this concept of wills in our family, spiritual wills. And some of my decisions were based on the fact that, someone told me in America there's this fear, this cultural fear of talking about the end of life, what will be. But a Yid always has to prepare his whole life. You're living here, and it's a wonderful world, but also is the time a Yid has to give a din cheshbon. And there's a way for a Yid to prepare himself and to go, and I'm talking about in a spiritual matter. So I decided the different things I'm going to discuss openly with my children and talk about it, just to give them an example of how a Yid has to do things. So I do want to, this I want to really, my husband's very close friends, I want to say this following thing. My father left a beautiful will to my mother, because of course his father was a will writer, so we knew my father would have read. And he wrote something individual to every single person. But to my mother he wrote, he's asked my mother to please say his kapitel tehillim every single day. And I things I ever heard, because every time my mother said his kapitel tehillim, she's connected with him, she stays connected with him, and she does something beautiful for him under Shemayim, and she gives him a gift every single day. When I heard that, I wanted to put that on myself. I started saying my mother's kapitel tehillim every single day. And many, many people, I've told them, if you want to achlata, the person you love, say their kapitel every day. So I'm asking my husband's close friends that continue saying his kapitel at least for this year. His kapitel is Ayin, as many of you know, it's 70. But Gimel Adar, which is coming up soon, is going to be his 70th birthday. It will be Ayin Aleph. And I want to conclude again, what are the things that really personify my husband? And hopefully a lot of all of the same thing comes over and over and over again. It's the concept of shalom, peace. He was a man who intrinsically loved peace. One of his, from this group in Miami, one of them just told us a story that he remembers when something was going on with 2 guys in the throats and they weren't getting along. And it bothered my husband so much, he stayed up a whole night talking to them and literally crying till they made shalom. So shalom is something very, very close to me. Abbas Yisrael, my husband was known for his Abbas Yisrael. He had the ability to connect the heart to the heart. He was a man of action, and most of all, he did everything with simcha. So that should be the rallying cry. I just want to tell my children, and you'll have all the brothers in the world. You hold on tight, you will have Bonei, Chaim, and everything good. I wish the Pittsburgh community, my husband is definitely happy with the Pittsburgh community up there. Each of us, everybody has their needs. I can't tell you how many people used to write in for shidduchim and for babies and for all kinds of health things. He was always writing about the community. We love you all, and thank you so much for honoring him with your presence.
As our Rosenblum said before, it only matter Rabbi Itkin to say, I could hear Rabbi Itkin's voice booming, let's all give, and it's an Itkin, a big bracha, that she should continue to lead the community and bring everyone together with Gesundheit, with the Lebendigkeit, and Gesundheit. I'm not sure why you're worried about people leaving, there's more people on we started, but one of the beautiful things tonight, I think, was that no one looked for anything original to say. Everyone said the same thing. It was Rabbi Itkin is emes lamidai, and everyone in their own words said the same ideas about Rabbi Itkin, because that is Rabbi Itkin, what we heard here tonight. And as you mentioned, the Chaim and we all continue to do so. We can always love sharing a Siddush Alaisa. Rebbe said this by Farbrengen. In Kisei Arizal, the Arizal's writings, it says that you're not supposed to get stuck at night. So the Rebbe repeated the story a number of times, at least more than once. At one time, he was walking in shul, there was a stuck box, and he got some coins from his pocket, and he threw it into the box. So someone turned to him and said, no, hostage, the Rebbe should know if Kisei Arizal, that that's what gets stuck at night, so the Rebbe feels so bad. So later he went to that day went to the Fidik Rebbe. He told the Fidik Rebbe that he got sacked. He was told off for getting stuck at night. You know, he was feeling. So the Fidik Rebbe told him, you can be sure that the person who told you that probably doesn't get stuck the right day. So it was bothering him that he get stuck at night. We all know that Rebbe gave plenty of stuck at night. Everyone is familiar with the Sunday dollars, but Rebbe gave many more times stuck at night after hiding to people to give tzedakah. So as we mentioned earlier, Teda Beit Bills Consultant, Rebbe was insisted that every gathering should have all three elements. We've at Tefillah, your words of Teda. We can all do tzedakah right here, right now as well. Modern days, cash is king. It's not the king only moves one step at a time. It's not what people do much, but people do electronic stuff, as you did it here tonight as well. There's everyone on their chair, I know they were gathered, so it's not on your chair, it's in a pot and everything. There's two papers here, two tzedakahs that everyone should participate in honor of Rabbi Itkin. You have the family, Rabbi Itkin's family is collecting here to buy a new mitzvah tank that will be stationed out of Binghamton, where Rabbi Itkin's daughter and son-in-law are one of the shluchim, but will also continue. Binghamton's where the students are, as most schools, you know, don't have a lot of time in school. They're more out of school than in school, so there's when the students are not in Binghamton, the mitzvah tank will go around to other family members, hopefully including Pittsburgh, and to do with Tzayim. We all know Rabbi Itkin's passion for Tzayim as a shliach. It's something that he took very seriously, and so everyone, if you don't know how to use a QR code, you can type into your phone, charity.com/Rabbi Itkin to participate in that fundraiser in his honor. And second, there's a beautiful letter here from Rabbi Rosenblum and Rabbi Rosenfeld about a local memorial mikvah for Rabbi Itkin. Rabbi Itkin had many hats that he wore here in Pittsburgh. His primary hat was a mashpia in the yeshiva, and part of the being mashpia in yeshiva, as we heard from the students here tonight, was bringing the passion of Chassidus, Darkei Chassidus, and to the students. And of course, one of those is the importance of going to the mikvah. And as yeshiva is getting ready to move the Masifta to the new building in Greenfield, new men's mikvah for the Bachar being built there in his honor. And here again, there's a QR code here, so if you don't know how to use one, charity.com, it's not on this paper, but charity.com/Rabbi Itkin mikvah. So we have to use add the word mikvah. The first one, Rabbi Itkin, and add the word mikvah. Do the second, give through charities to be able to help memorialize Rabbi Itkin's practices of Chaim and Libay in Ma'aseh Gashmi here. Particularly, by the way, the students, if you haven't reached yet, it means your class is not doing a good job, that the focus is on the alumni to participate in honor of Rabbi Itkin, each class together. They should help, both of these schools should have shachas, and should bring about the ultimate, most important element, which is that we should be safe that Shleishim begins tonight, that the scene of the Shleishim should be with pizza around Sheikh Yavar, see the day in vision. I will say that one thing is sorely missing in this event here. Chaim told me I expect I did this before I come here to say l'chaim. We would not have tolerated Chaim here, but we could be mashal. There'll be a Farbrengen in the next room as soon as I have this one more video first.
Well,